Premanandi, Hari Hari. Somehow this mic is not staying the way it should be. Om Makyantimandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshunmritam Jana Tasmai Shri Gove Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapadam Yana Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Dadati Swabadantikam Namam Vishnupada Krishna Pista Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Govani Pujayane Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasadada Satarine Vanshakapa Tuvasa Kripa Sinivevata Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shri Vasari Go Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you for coming to this morning's Bhagavatam class and for allowing me to one more time share a few things. So we are reading today Canto 4, Chapter 16, verse 26 and hopefully also 27 to finish the chapter and be back on track with the schedule. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Tata Tata Girastasta It. Yes, okay, chant. Tata Tata Girastasta Iti Vishuddha Vikramaha Shosyatyatma Sritagataha Pritu Pritu Parakrama. Somebody would like to chant? No? Okay, then we continue word for word. Ta-ta, ta-ta. Here and there. Gira, words. Ta-ta, many, various. Iti, thus. Vishuddha, Vishuddha Vikramaha. He whose chivalrous activities are widely reputed. Shosyati will hear. Atma Ashritaha about himself. Gataha songs, narrations. Pritu, King Pritu. Pritu Parakramaha, distinctly powerful. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. In this way, when the chivalrous activities of King Pritu come to be known to the people in general, King Pritu will always hear about himself and his uniquely powerful activities. We have a short purport by Srila Prabhupada, short but to the point. To artificially advertise oneself and thus enjoy a so-called reputation is a kind of conceit. Prithu Maharaj was famous amongst the people because of his chivalrous activities. He did not have to advertise himself artificially. One's factual reputation cannot be covered. Very nice purport. As I said, short but to the point. Well, yeah, let me mention a few little things about this, because we can say material life is the path to success in material life is to advertise oneself. The more we can show off and promote ourselves, the more successful we become. But, according to Prabhupada's statement here, this is actually artificially advertising oneself, and this is actually a kind of conceit. It's actually cheating, because one's fame is not naturally coming from one's service activities, but we are just making a fuss about ourselves and promote ourselves. And of course, social media really helps in this immensely. I mean, we can almost say any fool can become famous all around the world overnight, but if he knows the art of promoting himself and posting the more ridiculous pictures or posts we do, the more it gets viewed and so on, so. But for a spiritualist, this is actually very contaminating, this tendency to show off. I'm discussing this in all depth in the book about the false ego, because it boosts and feeds the false ego immensely. Whereas, as we know, if we want to go back home, back to Godhead, we have to completely dissolve and subdue the false ego, transform it into the real ego of Jiva, Supa and Krishna Nityadas. That's the real ego, that's the real identification. But yes, this tendency to show off and promote oneself. I mean, we can say this is why we are here in this material world, because false ego makes us think to be something which we are not. In a nutshell, that's what the false ego does. So we think ourselves to be so special, so unique, so extraordinary, the center of the universe, and the supreme controller, enjoyer, proprietor. So, and that's, what makes us act in all different kinds of ways, which are not very helpful for spiritual life. So again, let us remember 269 in Bhagavad Gita. It says, what is day to the common person is night to the introspective sage. So what is success in material life may very well be an obstacle in spiritual life, and vice versa. What success in spiritual life is seen to be a weakness in material life. That's how 180 degrees opposite these two approaches to life, these two worldviews, these two cultures are. So, and especially here in regards to advertising oneself, this is the path to success in material life, definitely. The more you can get up there, the more successful you will be. But we have to be very careful that we don't bring this attitude into our spiritual life, because all these things are very subtle, and we are so conditioned by this modern materialistic propaganda that very easily we take these elements into our spiritual life, and we want to be seen and noticed and in the front line and but this is not very helpful for our spiritual development, because Vaishnava life is, we want to recognize how tiny, insignificant and unimportant we are. I have several times already quoted this statement from Nectar of Devotion, where Prabhupada says, as long as we want to try and become a more and more important person, materially or spiritually, we cannot really taste the sweet taste of devotional life. We are tasting something different. We are tasting ego satisfaction, Yeah, so it's very subtle, and we have to be very careful. There's also this nice, almost amusing statement in one purport that Prabhupada makes. He says, in the material world, even an ass enjoys his own sound vibration. Prabhupada often has such a humorous way of getting the points across. So even an ass thinks, my sound is so beautiful, let the whole world hear my sound. But, and then Prabhupada continues, but in the spiritual world, even the beautifully chirping birds, like the chakravaka, the cuckoos, the peacocks, they rather hear the glories of the Lord chanted by the bees. Even though the bees, from a material point of view, their humming is not so overwhelming, But that's the mood in the spiritual world, that even these most beautifully chirping birds, they don't think their sound is so beautiful and that the whole world has to hear it. They rather want to hear the glories of the Lord chanted or hummed by the bees. They think, oh, that's so beautiful. That's the mood in the spiritual world. So, in other words, if we really want to go there one day, we have to take up the mood. We have to get rid of this ass-like mentality. And I dare say, if we are a little honest, we all have this ass in our hearts, who likes to stick up his ugly head and take advantage of any opportunity to be heard and noticed. Yes. I mean, it's a whole big discussion, of course. I do have a 10-hour seminar on the false egos. Yes. And so we have to be very careful, because Krishna consciousness offers so much opportunities to actually feed and boost the false ego, and try to use Krishna consciousness to be recognized. In other words, to advertise ourselves. Like kirtan is the opportunity. Yes. And, well, my God, So whenever we can feel this frustration in our heart, that, I did not get a chance to lead, then the alarm bells should go off, Yes, because if our satisfaction and joy comes from chanting the holy name, we don't care whether we lead or not lead, right? We don't care, Yes. So whenever we feel this urge, I want to lead, then this sounds like we're running after this false ego gratification, or I can lead, So as we actually get deeper insights into chanting the holy name, we realize we lose this anxiousness to lead, because we realize that's not the point. That's not the point, Yes. So there's a lot of subtle things there, And yes, we also can easily massage each other's false egos, because we all like to hear our glories chanted, we like to be advertised. So then, in a flattering way, we can say, "Oh, Prabhu, you're so great, and your kirtans, your classes." So, and then this person thinks, "Oh, finally somebody recognizes my greatness. He must be a very advanced devotee," And then just to make sure he continues glorifying and flattering us, we offer some glorifying, flattering words in return. "Now you, Prabhu, you are so amazing," and then we have this massaging each other's false egos, and both sides really enjoy it. "Oh, it feels good, somebody is massaging and boosting my false ego here." All these things can easily take place, all in the name of, well, I'm just glorifying devotees. But it's so subtle what mood we have, what is our intention. Do we glorify to get glorified ourselves, or are we actually in a humble, honest way expressing appreciation? There is a difference there. It's rather subtle, but yeah, it is there, Yes, another interesting thing, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he made this statement to his disciples. He did not allow them to have a picture of himself in public. If I remember correctly, it was even on the altar. And he said, "While I'm in this world, you cannot put a picture of me in public. This will not be good for my false ego," he said. "Once I'm gone, then you can put." Wow, And of course, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he does not have a false ego. But why is he saying this? To instruct us. Because to have one's picture in public is doing something to the false ego. Again, it's rather subtle, but it has an effect. And sometimes I'm wondering what Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say about Facebook, where people, take such great pleasure to post all kinds of pictures about themselves. Not a good idea, It's not helpful in the whole process of dissolving one's false ego. Not helpful at all, Yes, and maybe we have that experience, when in our social media, that we are so anxious. Oh, how many people read it? How many likes? How many smiles do I get there? And how many followers do I have? This is all not very helpful for dissolving our false ego. Yes. Actually, one senior devotee, Prabhupada disciple, he asked me, "Oh, Mataji, how many followers do you have?" And I didn't even realize, because I live without a phone. I'm not on social media. I have a Facebook page hidden with my Institute for Spiritual Culture, Just people convinced me that for preaching this would be helpful. But when he asked me, "So how many followers do you have?" I said, "I don't know. I don't know. I'm not into followers," I said to him. And then afterwards I realized, what he meant was probably on Facebook or YouTube or whatever. So, but we are chanting Shikshastikam every morning. I don't want any followers, Mahaprabhu tells us. So, but here we are running after followers, so all in the name of preaching. Yes, but we have to be careful. Yes, it is dangerous, Yes, so let me share one little statement what humility is. Yes, in Bhagavad Gita 13:8-12, Prabhupada says in the purport, humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others, but from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. Nice definition of what humility means, that we should not be so anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored, meaning fame, advertising, promoting ourselves and all that. So actually, yes, so there we can look in our heart and see how much have I developed this, that I'm not anxious to be honored and glorified by others, Yes. Yeah, so it's, I mean, actually a Vaishnava feels uncomfortable when he is Glorified, Jai Shri Shri Radha Radhanath Shri Shri Gora Hari Shri Giraj Ki Jai. Yeah, so that's the Vaishnava mood. He feels uncomfortable, when others glorify him. He feels like blocking his ears and running away. And he feels, they're saying so many nice things about me, but little do they know what's really in my heart. So, again, we can reflect and see, how do we feel when somebody glorifies us? Do we actually lap it up, how we say? Do we enjoy it, or finally somebody understands how great I am? Or do we actually feel uncomfortable? Yeah, so if we actually start feeling discomfort when somebody glorifies us, so then we are making some little advancement here, But as long as we really still enjoying it, and we are after it, we have to be very careful. Even we do, it's maybe a bit of a hot topic. In many temples we do announce who is doing which service, and we clap, the drums go, ki jai, ki jai, ki jai. This person sponsored this person cooked the feast, this person dressed the deities. Yeah, I dare say we have to be a little careful. We are not saying we should not appreciate devotees. Certainly we should appreciate devotees. But, I mean, when I joined in the mid-80s, we did not do this, this drums and ki jai, ki jai, ki jai. And I sometimes feel like, well, maybe we're just trying to give people this ego satisfaction, just to make sure it keeps them going and they cook again the feast the next week or something. But don't we want to wind our devotees off this ego satisfaction, So I usually suggest that, and I personally feel so much more comfortable in this also, to offer appreciation privately. Because naturally, the more people hear our glories, the more it gratifies the false ego, right? If 1,000 people are in the audience and they all hear what we did, that gives a big boost to the ego, But if it's only 5 or 10 people, it's not such a boost for the ego, right? That's the principle. So I personally like to offer appreciation by going up to that person privately and say, thank you so much for doing this service. It means a lot to me. Thank you. And I find this kind of appreciation more honest and more in a humble, honest mood. And then it is a loving exchange. But just kind of institutionalize the glorification of, we have to announce, and then somebody who also was in the kitchen cooking, his name is not mentioned, and then people often get upset. Or I was also in the kitchen and nobody mentioned my name. Do we really want to train our devotees in this mood, No. Actually we want to eventually bring devotees to the point where they feel discomfort hearing their names chanted there, their glories. That is a sign of advancement. That's where we want to bring our devotees, and not just keep them forever motivated by the false ego boost they're getting, that everybody hears what I'm doing or something, But maybe it's a bit of a personal mood which I have or something. But also, we do say that good and honest feedback, it should be given actually in a kind of a sandwich form, that we first offer some appreciation and gratitude, then we offer some room for improvement, and then we finish again by appreciation. So let's say a person cooked the Sunday feast, that we go up to the person and say, thank you, Prabhu, you've been doing this service so steadily. Thank you so much. It really is so helpful. And then we can say, the dal was a little salty, but everything else was so nice, and I saw devotees really relishing the sabjis and. So, yes, please, understand I'm grateful for the service you offer. So this is, good feedback. Because as we know, we have the saying, he who glorifies us is our enemy, right? And he who actually corrects and chastises us, he is our friend. So why enemy? Because it boosts our false ego. That's why he's our enemy. So let's not serve each other as enemies by boosting their egos, and rather giving them well-balanced and honest and humble feedback. And then this is a truly loving exchange, but just this institutionalizing glorification and acknowledging, I'm not such a friend of it, to be honest. And even the correction should also be given in this sandwich form, because this is also often what we don't do. We just pounce on people and get on their case, But no, we should first offer our appreciation, for their service, that they're part of our community, and. So, and then we offer the correction, and then we finish again on a positive note, And then such kind of corrections are well taken. But if we just jump on people and get on their cases, we discussed it in that evening where we talked about envy, that if we have this nature, it may very well indicate that there's some envy there in our heart, that we are simply, putting people down and enjoying our superiority and all that. So we have to be very careful and introspective and reflect and. Yes, and I mean, let us understand here, Prithu Maharaj, he didn't need to be advertised, in the same way Srila Prabhupada also, we can compare him in many ways to Prithu Maharaj, because Srila Prabhupada's glories, spoke for themselves. He didn't need to be advertised, and he didn't want to be advertised. But again, as it is said in Prabhupada's purport, one's factual reputation cannot be covered. You cannot hide it, actually, if it is factual reputation based on Shiva's activities and glorious achievements or something, But in the same way, Prabhupada was always so humble. He never took the credit. He always pass the credit on others, on his Guru Maharaj, even on his disciples, who were sent by Krishna to help him, and. So that is the humility of a Vaishnava. He doesn't feel he deserves any glorification and credit, and he very well knows that whatever little he achieves is simply Krishna's arrangement. Yes, it is Krishna's mercy, and Krishna uses us as tools and all that. And a nice story in this regard in Chaitanya Charitamrita we have with Madhavendra Puri, right? Where the Lord hides a pot of kheer, and the pujari gives it to Madhavendra Puri. And Madhavendra Puri is afraid, oh my God, if everybody will hear this, they will all glorify me, and he's running off, leaving the town. But already there, they all heard about it, so yes, devotee cannot escape his glories, yes, but he felt very uncomfortable. So that's the Vaishnav mood and Vaishnav behavior which we want to cultivate. So we should support and help each other to get there, Again, which does not mean we don't appreciate devotees. But if we do it personally, privately, I find this so much more loving and honest and personal, Yes. All right, so let me move on to the next verse, and then we are back on track in our speaking schedule there. Maybe I'll just skip the Sanskrit and read translation and purport. So that's verse 27, which is the last verse of this chapter. No one will be able to disobey the orders of Prithu Maharaj. After conquering the world, he will completely eradicate the threefold miseries of the citizens. Then he will be recognized all over the world. At that time, both the Suras and the Asuras will undoubtedly glorify his magnanimous activities. So purport by Prabhupada. At the time of Maharaj Prithu, the world was ruled by one emperor, although there were many subordinate states, just as there are many united states in various parts of the world. In olden days, the entire world was ruled through many states. But there was a supreme emperor who ruled over all subsidiary states. As soon as there were some discrepancies in the maintenance of the Varnashram system, the emperor would immediately take charge of the small states. The word Utpatita Lokashalya indicates that Maharaj Prithu completely uprooted all the miseries of his citizens. The word Shalya means piercing thorns. There are many kinds of miserable thorns that pierce the citizens of a state, but all competent rulers, even up to the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, uprooted all the miserable conditions of the citizens. It is stated that during the reign of Maharaj Yudhisthira, there did not even exist severe cold or scorching heat, nor did the citizens suffer from any kind of mental anxiety. This is the standard of good government. Such a peaceful and prosperous government, devoid of anxiety, was established by Prithu Maharaj. Thus, the inhabitants of both saintly and demoniac planets were all engaged in glorifying the activities of Maharaj Prithu. Persons or nations anxious to spread their influence all over the world should consider this point. if one is able to eradicate completely the threefold miseries of the citizens, he should aspire to rule the world. One should not aspire to rule for any political or diplomatic consideration. Wow, pretty strong words. I mean, if this was applied in the modern days, then there would be nobody to rule any country, because none of the political leaders, they have this mood of, wanting to eradicate the miseries of the citizens, and they wouldn't even know how to do it anyway. So yeah, pretty strong words, So one thing, is nice to remember, how in former times the whole world was actually ruled by one emperor. And this makes it clear that in former times, Varnashram was spread all over the world. Sanatana Dharma was the religion. And then as this one worldwide kingdom breaks up in smaller kingdoms, so then Sanatana Dharma developed in different areas of the world in different ways. And that's how we get all the religions now, And if we look a little deeper, we can see that there are so many similarities, and how really all world religions are actually based on Krishna consciousness originally, But in due course of time, things were getting lost and taken out of because of political reasons and. But yes, the very original understanding is all based on Krishna consciousness, Yes. Yes. So I would like to just use the remaining time of touching upon a few little points which we can learn from Prithu Maharaj's reign, how he ruled, for our management, because these leelas, they're not just nice leelas to entertain us or something, but no, they all give a message to us, how we can apply things in our daily life. So, Prithu Maharaj, it is amazing how he was almost responsible. His responsibility was to eliminate the citizens' suffering, to make sure everybody was happy in his kingdom. Yes, And of course, because he is an incarnation of the Lord, he is a Shaktivesha avatar, so, he made sure that God consciousness was preserved and was maintained and was followed, as Prabhupada says. So, he, as soon as there were some discrepancies in maintenance of an ashram system, he would immediately step in. So, these two principles we can definitely accept for our community development. The importance of really having Krishna in the center is the one, yes. And we can say this is, of course, especially manifest in our deity worship, that the more we are able to put the deities really in the center of the whole community, the more the community develops, the more our communities become Vaikuntha, right? Even though they're Radha Krishna, but Prabhupada was instructing us that Radha Krishna, in our neophyte stage, we also worship them actually in the mood of Lakshmi Narayan, because that awe and reverence is there. There's not this intimacy there that we are just, chatting here with Krishna and we see him as our friend or lover or little son or something. No, this is only in Goloka Vrindavan. So now in our deity worship we have that mood of awe and reverence, And so that of course puts the deities in really in the center. So as far as possible, actually everybody in a community should have some connection with the deities, some connection in some way, even if they're not initiated, still they can grow some flowers in their garden if they have one, or on their balcony or on the rooftop, and bring them for the Lord, do something for the Lord, get some fruits, make some garlands, make some little flower decorations, vases, whatever, So this connection to the deities is just so important. That creates this Vaikuntha atmosphere, that everybody has some connection with the deities. And that's why the festivals are so important, to really put the deities into the center and really use it as an opportunity to get out of our comfort zone and making some extra endeavors to make all kinds of pleasing arrangements for the Lord and. So that's why Bhaktivinoda Thakur also calls the festivals, he calls them the mother of devotion, because if we celebrate them nicely, they really draw bhakti from the heart, because we get so absorbed and that we almost forget to eat and to sleep, and that's why we have fasting days, so we don't have to eat, so we have more time. In this regard, I also do want to read a couple of nice statements which Prabhupada made, which are almost like vision statements, for ISKCON. This is 5th canto, 13th chapter, verse 11, and the purport Prabhupada says, "One person is envious of another, and this is the way of the material world. The Krishna consciousness movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. Of course, it is not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but the Krishna consciousness movement can create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy." Very nice vision for a community, Let's strive to come up to this statement, fulfill this statement of Prabhupada, that we are trying to create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. So in our discussion on envy, we were saying that envy comes as soon as there's sense gratification. If we aim for sense gratification, envy enters, right? And in the spiritual world, because there's complete absence of sense gratification, therefore there's no envy. So, and that is that makes, as we discussed that one evening program, if we can act in our relationships towards seniors equals juniors without envy, that solves all our problems. Then we can actually, we will not be affected by the threefold miseries of this material world, Prabhupada is saying, because in one sense we are not part of the material world anymore. We are already in the spiritual world. Yes, so this is a very nice thing to keep in the back of our mind and to strive for, to actually create an exemplary society wherein there is no envy. Yes. Of course, it's a high goal, but Prabhupada gives us that vision, And then we have another. Yes, there's another nice statement also. basically about this importance of creating Vaikuntha atmosphere, because this is really what, Prithu Maharaj managed to create, Vaikuntha atmosphere in the whole world, by his nice rule, by his caring for every citizen, and by his genuine Krishna consciousness, Yes. Yeah, so in 3:15:33, Prabhupada says in the purport, if the members of ISKCON, putting faith in Krishna as the center, live in harmony according to the order and principles of Bhagavad Gita, then they are living in Vaikuntha, not in this material world. So again, this point, if we put Krishna in the center and we actually live what Prabhupada gives us. We don't just learn it and repeat it, but we actually apply it in life. So then we are not in this material world, then we are in Vaikuntha. Or in one letter in 1974, Prabhupada says, you should know that our temples, they are not in this material world. The temple is Vaikuntha, where Krishna is remembered and served 24 hours daily without stopping. So we are already in Vaikuntha by participating in the temple activities. So it must be done very nicely. Yes. Also a nice instruction, Yes, so first principle of Prithu Maharaj's reign was his genuine Krishna consciousness, making really Krishna the center and maintaining all the religious and Vaishnava principles, Varnashram principles and so on. And then the second one, I do want to just briefly, even though it is another whole big topic, but I do want to link this with an importance of devotee care, because just reading how Prithu Maharaj, cared for his citizens and eliminated all their miseries, and how in response they really loved him, even the asuras glorified him. I mean, God, that means a lot, So it just shows that he had this caring spirit, And this is something where we are often falling a little short in, that we make all endeavors to put the deities, the lordships in the center, but because the devotees are more dear to the Lord than anything, the devotees have conquered his heart, especially if they serve selflessly, So then Krishna says, oh yeah, you're making all these nice arrangements for me, but what about my devotees? So actually, to serve and care and please the devotees, this is so important to Krishna. This really attracts his attention like anything. As we also know, Krishna says, not he who claims to be my devotee is my devotee, but he who is the devotee of my devotee. So this does not mean only, we have to approach Guru or something to approach Krishna. That's also there. But no, to actually serve and care for devotees, that is the secret of success. If we care for devotees, then Krishna cares for us. Yes. You may know I have been a part of the devotee care committees. So this care for devotees, such an important thing, because sometimes, and I'm not really hinting here, I've got no clue what's happening in Durban, I'm just only arrived a couple of days ago. But this is all over the world in ISKCON. Sometimes we are a little too project focused. And we forget that projects consist of people. And if we are actually people focused, then our project will thrive. Because if people feel cared for, then they will give their life and soul in service, you know. Yes, they give their very everything. But sometimes we are very project focused, and we only look at the needs and of the project and the interests of the project, and we neglect a little bit the needs and interests of the devotees. And then devotees easily feel, oh, you know, everybody's only interested in what service I can do, but is there actually somebody who's genuinely interested in me as a struggling sadhaka? You know, what I need to move forward in my life, you know. Yes. Yeah, so, and that requires that, you know, our management and leadership is balanced with a solid program for devotee care. And the foundation to devotee care, and I'm just throwing a few little things here in the air, you know, because they're actually big topics, you know, but the foundation of devotee care is sheltering relationships. Yes, it's mentorship. If we have somebody in our life where we know this person has no other interest except my spiritual growth and development, and I can always go to this person and open my heart and reveal my innermost struggles and fears, you know, and that person will help me balance my needs and my life, you know. So then if we feel sheltered like this, then we can serve with heart and soul and give our everything. But if we don't have this in our life, then very easily we hold back. We think, okay, don't push me too much. I decide how much I want to do, and I just want to give 5 or 10% of my energy, and that's all I want to give. Because once we give our heart in service, if we sacrifice our very life, we put ourselves in a vulnerable situation, right? Yes, because very easily we can be disappointed, we can be taken advantage of in some way or another. You know, whenever we invest our heart, we put ourselves in a vulnerable condition. Yes, yes. So, and that's why, and I'm observing this wherever I go, you know, that's why very often devotees hold back, you know. And sometimes we feel we don't have enough devotees. But no, actually, we have so many devotees. But they all only, or many of them only give 5% in their mood of service. They don't serve with heart and soul. You know, they're holding back. Because they don't feel sheltered and cared for. You know. Yeah, big topic. Of course, we cannot expect managers to also reach out and care and all this. So it is kind of, it has to be parallel to a management structure. There has to be a devotee care structure based on sheltering relationships, on mentorship. Yes, yes. So, yes. And because also when devotees don't serve with heart and soul, Krishna does not reciprocate. He doesn't show himself tangibly. He doesn't give a taste and deep satisfaction. And then very often what happens, devotees are, you know, on some humdrum level of devotional life, where they're just doing something little, and because they're only giving little, they don't serve, you know, with endeavor, you know, therefore nothing happens in their life, they don't get a taste, their faith doesn't increase, so therefore they also don't feel so inspired to serve more. And then very easily they can even fade away, right? Because Krishna wants to see how much sacrifice we accept, how much we sacrifice ourselves in service. We talked briefly about it yesterday, and that attracts His merciful glance. But if we don't serve with great endeavor, giving everything in service, then nothing much really happens in our life. And Krishna consciousness becomes boring. Yes, boring, and we don't feel inspiration. And the root cause is because we don't feel sheltered. Yes. So rather than thinking, we don't have enough devotees, we should think, how can we care more for the devotees so that they feel genuinely sheltered and appreciated and cared, and then they will give their heart and soul in service, So there's the famous letter of Prabhupada with boiling the milk. I'm sure we know it. Interestingly, Prabhupada already in 1970, he several times wrote this letter saying, I am concerned that we should not spread ourselves more and more widely, but we should just boil the milk. We should deeply train those devotees which we have. And Prabhupada even said we have enough devotees, So let's just boil the milk so the devotees become, thicker and deeper and sweeter, like milk. When we boil it, becomes burfi, So burfi-like devotees we want, solid and sweet, So interestingly, Prabhupada also already in 1970, he wrote several times these famous letters that we should not be so concerned in bringing more and more people, but we should boil the milk, and really train them more and more deeply and bring them on higher levels of spiritual development. And that takes time and care and energy, like that. Okay, so time is up. Do we have maybe one quick question, if you permit? Is there anything? No question. Well, if you kindly allow me, mainly for the online audience, maybe I do one more time say a few words about these books I have, because I'm only a few more days here in Durban, and I simply want to give enough opportunity for people to get these books, because there's so many important things for our spiritual development. It's not that I'm trying to advertise myself here, but I feel such an urge to get these topics out into the world. So spiritual culture, Krishna's divine system, this is all about the different natures of man and woman, how they're so different in nature and qualities, because they're meant to play different roles. We women have a very powerful Shakti. Yes, in many ways we are superior to the man. That's what Prabhupada also says, that woman's energy is much more powerful than man's energy. But also Bhagavatam tells us we should use that Shakti to empower the men and not compete with them. So very important for ladies, any woman who wants to have harmonious relationships with men in her life, not only in marriage, also in all temple dealings and even at work with non-devotee colleagues. If you check out this book, you will discover a few secrets how to conquer, make the man's false ego your best friend and not your enemy. Yes. And for men, if they want to get the empowerment of the women and the support, they should also check it out. Very helpful for married life. It has saved already quite a few marriages around the world. People write to me and express their gratitude. So I heard in South Africa you also have a struggle a bit with a higher divorce rate. So it may be helpful for you here also. Then we have sheltering relationships. This is the topic about mentorship. The full title is Sheltering Relationships, the Foundation of Devotee Care. So it's actually all about devotee care based on mentorship. Very helpful. I've been preaching in Ukraine for over 20 years now. Of course, unfortunately, I can't go there. But there I have witnessed, Narendra Swami established a very solid structure for mentorship. I have witnessed how much stability that gives to devotees' individual life and to the communities. Yes, they have a very small divorce rate in Ukraine because of mentorship. Yes, any marriage problem can be solved if people have a mentor and agree to accept guidance and work on themselves rather than blaming the other person. Any marriage problem can be solved. So very important. If you read this book, you will be convinced that without having a mentor and eventually becoming one to others, we actually cannot make advancement. That's what it comes down to. And there's a whole chapter on the qualities a mentor has to have, so we know what to look for and we know what we should develop, so we can come up to this level and reach out and guide others and uplift them, yes. Then we have the false ego, our constant companion and troublemaker. We talked a little bit in the first part of the class, feeding, boosting false ego, showing off, advertising ourselves. It's all about that. And also, like when we get offended, how often does that happen in daily life? It's the false ego crying for justice and fairness. Yeah, let's understand what takes place there. So false ego is so subtle, we can miss the whole target in Krishna consciousness and feed and boost the false ego instead of subduing and resolving it. And in this book is also a chapter on chanting the holy name. How to chant in japa, in kirtan, so it dissolves the false ego and not boost and feed it, And then we have entering the Grihastha Ashram, handbook for matchmaking. Our high divorce rate is connected to the fact that we do the whole thing in the wrong way. That, not according to Krishna's recommendations. So this is like a handbook for matchmaking, very important for young unmarried devotees who are not married yet, for parents to understand how to help their children find a matching spouse, for mentors, for anybody who guides and reaches out to others. This whole matchmaking topic I consider one of the most important aspects of devotee care. Wherever I go in the world, I meet so many devotees who want to get married and nobody helps them. Yes, terrible. And then what can they do? They have to go hunting and fishing themselves, look for a partner, then they have the pink glasses on, fall in love, they can't see what they get themselves into. And then after 2-3 years of marriage, the pink glasses fade away and people realize, we don't match. And then they get divorced. It happens all the time. I met already a few cases like this here in South Africa too. So here, please, let's educate ourselves how to change ashrams. There's a whole list of over 200 topics which he and she should discuss with a cool head to see, are we on the same page? Do we have the same goals and interests and moods and standards we want to follow? And very important. We have to put an end, to this high divorce rate and single motherhood. And oh my God, the children suffer like anything. And it brings so much instability. We can ruin our whole life by making the wrong decisions. I see it again and again. Anywhere I go in the world, Yes, people ruin their whole life like this. And last but not least, Family Life as an Ashram, Secrets of Success. So that book teaches us how to actually create this culture of bhakti in our home. Many married devotees' lives cannot even really be called an ashram, because we have not taken any training and education what it actually means to make our home life into a place suitable to cultivate bhakti. That education most people don't take. See, all these books are 15-hour courses, which I give in Mayapur. I have this Institute for Spiritual Culture. So now I'm putting the courses in book form so it can reach more people, So there are so many important things in this book. How to really, create this culture of bhakti, culture of sadhana, culture of kirtan in our home. And if we have this culture of bhakti in our home, then the children naturally become devotees. They grow into it very naturally. But if this culture of bhakti is not there and it's just rules, you have to chant, this will not be attractive, And this book also has a whole chapter on physical intimacy in marriage, how to live this principle of no illicit sex life. There is a little confusion in our movement over this, and nobody talks about it. People are at a loss how to make things work. So I did quite a bit of research, and I came across interesting episodes with Prabhupada, which hardly anybody knows. And they add a little different perspective to the whole topic. So I simply hope this book will help us to make our family life more Krishna conscious and at the same time emotionally more balanced and healthy and nice. So that's my humble hope, that these books will be hopeful. So if anybody wants to get some books, they're 300 Rand each. Many people have taken the whole set in Johannesburg and Cape Town. So for the whole set I can give a little discount. It's 1,300 instead of 1,500. It may sound a lot, but it was very expensive to send these books here. You would not believe how expensive it was. So, but that's the way it is. But I don't go anywhere without books these days, because how much can people remember from talks? But if they have a book, it's more solid and substantial. And of course they still have to read it, but I hope they will, because it's relevant. Yes. Okay, thank you so much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hare Hare Krishna.